today I will show you how to improve your drawing skill using a sketchbook and an ink pen, and we will draw these. But before we start, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Janos. I'm a professional concept artist. I worked in games and movies the last 7 years. I'm also a full-time art teacher, and I teach people in one-on-one mentorship sessions. For this exercise, we will use 2 reference images. It's important that you have good quality images. I can recommend definitely the Graphite Studio reference packs. So what we want to do first is we want to establish an understanding for our subject. So I want you to think of this as a training method. In order to learn, we need to fail. We want to make it as uncomfortable as possible. So this is also the reason why we're going to use a ink pen. Ink is permanent and we have to pre-think. And the pre-think aspect of the whole process is very important. But I promise you, if you have trouble with it now and you continuously work with it, you will get better. That's the first thing. We want to use an ink pen. The other thing is we want to closely look at our subject. What I try to do, I try to think in 2 manners. So I think about form and I think about shape. So I always look at it before and ask myself, what is the form of the object? And then I look again at the reference and ask myself, okay, what is now the shape of the object? And then I try to overlap this method to make sure, okay, I can basically communicate the form I want to communicate, but simultaneously, I also want to create a really nice shape, so it's very pleasing to look at. To make sure that it's going to be a good quality drawing. This drawing process here in the video is also sped up by 300%. So it's by 3 times of my normal drawing speed. My normal drawing speed in that process is very slow. It maybe also will be very slow for you in the beginning, but you eventually get faster and faster and faster. Let's fast forward a little bit and let's draw this figure. Is basically a form wrapping around another form, but I simultaneously want to make sure that the shape of the belt looks good because, again, I want to have a high quality drawing. Also a little tip here from my side, when it comes to drawing in general in your sketchbook, for me it was a long process to figure out what is the right size for my drawing. I had the tendency to draw very small, but I found out for myself that I actually like a bigger scale for my drawings. If you have a sketchbook which is kind of like A4 sized, then it's great because you can kind of like plan also ahead. So every time you try to approach a page with maybe 2 figures, think about where you want to place these figures first. So you see, I continuously use this method of thinking about the form and then thinking about the shape and then kind of like drawing it in. But I also do very small indications when it comes to little folds and form changes to add more volume to my drawing. And this is a very good tip here. think about the volume and think about how much you want to indicate, because we don't want to overdo it. And of course, since we use this ink pen, we cannot overdo it. That's definitely important to think about in the process. The other thing is making these contact shadows, so where two elements meet each other, a little bit thicker and darker. You maybe have seen it on a lot of artists actually use it to kind of like give more form and more depth and volume in the drawing itself. So if you think about that, that's actually an approach you can always do with either pencil or with an ink pen also. So we kind of like want to darken these areas a bit more and make them a bit thicker. Last but not least, we go over the silhouette to enhance and force the silhouette to pop out more. So it's not only about the silhouette and the general shape, it's also about the overlap of different objects. So if we have something that is on top of another object, we want to communicate that to the viewer, because again, our job as artists is communication. So this is what we want to do. Finish the drawing. Of course, when we do these drawings from reference, we don't want to blindly copy them. We don't want to impress anyone. It's about learning. We want to draw the next reference, but what we want to do, we want to flip it in our head. And in order to get this done, there is maybe a little bit of preparation needed. What we want to do, we want to flip it or turn it. So either way, you can turn it by 45 degrees, 90 degrees, 180 degrees. You can completely flip it, it's up to you, but it has to be completely turned, or it has to be turned to a certain degree. Before I do that, since we do it within an ink pen, we should maybe do a little bit of preparation. And I like to make these preparation drawings, which are also more like kind of like small thinking drawings. All I'm doing is I'm thinking about the position I want to do. What a lot of people forget when they draw the figure, there's always a foreshortening happen. So even if an arm comes a tiny bit closer to the point of observer or to the camera or to the eye of the viewer, it doesn't matter how you want to call it. If it comes closer, there's this tiny foreshorten. And for this, I try to think in ellipses and cylinders. So if there's an arm coming closer to me, I imagine a ellipse which goes a bit wider. So I'm really planning how is the figure positioned in a similar pose and where are the arms and legs going. So for this, I just do a very small, it doesn't need to be perfect, it's just about the positioning, little small drawing in the sketchbook on a different page to just think and pre-plan how things could look. What type of obstacles could I have? So for example, the guns he's holding, how do I position them? That I still can communicate three-dimensional look. What we don't want a flat drawing, we don't want a low quality drawing, we want to have a good quality drawing. But in order to do this, we have to prepared properly. Now we finish that, we have to jump into the cold water and just do it again. Again, we start with the top with what we know already. So our brain is kind of like used to the process. I chose the same angle I basically had of the figure we drew before. Now we do it in a different pose. So it actually will be easier at some point, even though it's something super complex. But since we already spent 45 minutes or an hour to draw it once very carefully, it subconsciously got burnt into our memory in our head. And this is kind of like a test, but it's also very good to mentally challenge us while drawing it. I wanted to have the gun in a certain angle, so that was definitely challenging. But I also made a little mistake here, and it's very interesting to see maybe, is I drew him very close to the border of my page. So I, of course, don't want to cut him. So I also had to draw him a little bit over the page, but it's still manageable. But again, same principle, we think about form first, and then we think about shape. And every little nod, every little indication, every little volume we can indicate with a subtle indication is our friend. At the end, I made it a little bit easier for myself. So I looked at the graphical read from his code, and it made it a little bit easier for me to basically communicate him seating. So I was looking for this triangular seated position. He's a bit lean back, basically worked, and I was happy with the result. Give it a try. Try this method. Again, it will be very, very hard in the beginning, but if you can do it, it's like a very strong method or a very strong training for your drawing skill. And you will definitely improve your drawing skill with this sketchbook technique. I hope you liked this video. If so, give it a thumbs up, subscribe for more, and otherwise leave a comment. And I wish you a wonderful day, happy fun drawing, and see you soon. Take care. Ciao, ciao.